Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Rose City Politics. It is September 29th. The election's over. We are able to dive into stories that actually affect us all here directly, locally, outside of that national talk, which is nice because for the past couple of weeks, let me tell you, trying to cull through the news stories it's been a little difficult trying to find some things that weren't nationally related. But we are here. We're excited for it. We've got Doug Sartori, Don Merrifield Jr., and myself, John Lidke. Doug, how are you tonight?
Doing real well.
I
Looking forward to tonight.
I realized just right now, is that the canal
Yes.
drawings?
Yes, it is.
Very good. That's an excellent throwback. I love it. We've had some pretty silly ideas in Windsor. And that was like definitely the silliest. That was up there with the gondola for sure.
The canal is the dumbest one that we didn't build. Think about it.
That is that's an amazing framing. I guess that's a win then. I suppose right. We did it.
That's right.
We did it. We also have Don Merrifield Jr. Don, how you doing?
I'm very well. To be honest, if we were going to do stupid ideas, that was my favorite stupid idea. So, if we we're going to spend all this money building something, I would have much preferred that.
It was that one moment when Eddie Francis ripped something out of Ernie the Bacon Man's platform. Like just that, it was a very surreal moment.
Go on, we got gondola rides going down University Avenue, right downtown. It's very romantic. You're Italian, Doug. That's like right up your alley.
Yeah. There
it's
you
like,
go.
It's like Canada's Venice is what it would have been, and you're just here crapping on it the whole time.
Terrible. Just a naysayer. What are you gonna do?
Wait till you see our Coliseum. It's gonna be fantastic.
Still trying to imagine people thinking of Windsor as Canada's Venice. Love it. So we are so glad to have you all here tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Please do support us. Patreon.com/Rose City Politics. We are in BizX Magazine. We are online at bizxmagazine.com, and we're on all of your favorite social media apps and your podcast apps. And Rose City Politics has been able to broadcast live on tape throughout the pandemic, pre-pandemic as well, thanks to the kind support of Leuna 625, Building Better Communities. We have got a hell of a show tonight. I said it's very, very like local focus. There's no national spin to any of these stories, unless we do what we do, in which case we'll find a couple ways to veer towards different points to talk about. But we will be jumping off right off the bat, talking about the new proposed iconic canopy for the Riverfront Festival Plaza. We will also be then moving on to the new Amherstburg High School name, which won't be Amherstburg or Amherst. And then we'll be talking about U.S. helicopters causing problems over Windsor skylines. And finally, alley standards. It is a hyper-focused Windsor episode. So strap in because we will dive straight into this now. An iconic canopy has been proposed for Riverfront Festival Plaza at a price tag of $32.5 million. Windsor Star's Brian Cross put this one out. It's coming to council on October the 4th. Event organizers and attendees for the past decade have panned the Riverfront Festival site, saying that there's no shade and protection from the elements, which is a fair complaint. It gets hot down there. The new design would cover the entire plaza, the stage. It would fit 5,000 plus. Would have a permanent canopy made of a translucent material, which would let light in, but it would keep out those harsh UV lights so you wouldn't, get burned. You'd still be able to see the waterfront. The main criticism is that the site currently is just a stage in a parking lot, and it doesn't cut it as it is a heat island. Now, we have seen phase one Festival Plaza improvements completed with the reconstruction and construction of a retaining wall in 2019. The initial phase of the canopy project involves roughly $4 million worth of underground work to commence as early as next year if council approves it at budget. The subsequent work would follow, including $13.5 million for construction of the canopy and roughly $8.5 million, for significant landscaping, lighting, and using converted shipping containers, washrooms, concessions, and other amenities in the construction, because, I guess this is the cheap model of the plan that we have. This concept, though, was first endorsed in 2018 by council, and if the canopy project moves forward by council, admin will move forward on changing the city's official plan and zoning bylaw, which should stand out for listeners of the show and followers of city politics. They'll change the zoning bylaw to allow for the height of the canopy to rise over the crown of the pavement on Riverside Drive, something not allowed for any structures whatsoever. This is an interesting one. I mean, I can speak to this one personally. My parents, I grew up on the Festival Plaza. I grew up, Blues Fest was first on Victoria Avenue, one of the first big festivals in like downtown Windsor in the music sense as well. Epicure did it there as well. After Victoria Avenue moved to the festival site, on the back end with the Onion Dome, for those who remember that from the initial opening of Casino Windsor, the rain tent of the entrance, which was very much like the plywood palace, I guess, of festival sites in Windsor. But it was pretty fun. I know that Axe loved it, able to see the Detroit skyline. And then with the 2008 recession, the funding came for the festival site, the stage, the retention pond, and now, the retaining wall's been done, but it's a half finished site. I don't think anyone can disagree with that. It's hot. If you're standing on that pavement, it's difficult. With climate change the way that it is right now, we're seeing that July and August are becoming hotter and hotter for longer hours, sometimes keeping up to that 85, 90 degrees up to like 11 o'clock at night. So having something that would have shade over it, I guess, even smaller than that, though, completing the site, I don't disagree with that at all. I think that, it's it's certainly a bit of an issue to be committing to a project like this without any federal matching funds, without any provincial matching funds. I think that many listeners would be listening and going, this sounds a lot like the aquatic center. It'll probably balloon in costs to something that is not what we've been told right now. But I don't think that that's necessarily a reason to not move forward with it. But I think that, you definitely need to get the buy-in here from the people that use it. So that's festival promoters today, but I think also potential festival promoters, which is a weird one. But if this is going to be a site that has inordinate cost for people to use, and then they still have to go renting lights, they still have to go renting sound, you have to wonder how viable is it even to be used at that point. So there's lots to dive into with this. This is my first take on it. Doug, I'll bring it to you for your take, but that's sort of where I'm coming from just right off the bat.
Yeah, just starting out setting the table. This, as you say, like, something should be done there because there is, a need, right? And my understanding is that it's been in the works for some time. There's been a plan, or the desire to plan for, some kind of finishing on Festival Plaza, but this is new. This is a very expensive idea. The thing that I wish we could do in Windsor is evaluate ideas like this without immediately separating into two rhetorical camps. Let's team world-class city and team naysayer. I think that we can have more mature discussions than that around stuff like this. I get the mayor's impulse, building, you sort of see some inkling of what the vision is, building a downtown with a number of, quote unquote, iconic or world-class elements like a new central library, like, this tent. I guess it's not fair to call it a tent, whatever it is, the big plastic tent. Things like this to, to revitalize and make downtown something that's more attractive. I just think that the rhetoric on that side of the equation is typically quite overblown, and it's hard, I think, because no one piece is going to like unlock the or turn the key and unlock Windsor's potential as a quote unquote world-class city. This is the kind of thing that takes decades and a lot of different components. And I think that's my biggest problem with it, is that I don't like having the vision for downtown or the vision for the city in general sort of broken out piecemeal. And, here's this piece and here's that piece. I think it makes it really, really difficult to evaluate it. Ultimately, so cutting through, trying not to align myself with either Camp Hooray or Camp Terrible. I think that I'm questioning whether this is a good investment, whether we need to spend so much money. I would really like to know what some of the alternatives are that would serve the same purpose and maybe have a lower price tag, so that we could have a good debate about tangible options, not just it's either this or we're going to live in an open sewer, because I think that there are a wide variety of options between those two ends. And I think it would be good to just bring a little context here. So you said 3.8 million next year, right, John?
3.8 million, yes, for the underground work.
So I assume, and I stand to be corrected, but I assume that this whole project would come under the Parks and Recreation capital spending umbrella. That's what I think. I could be wrong. And if so, please let us know. So in 2021, the capital budget for Parks and Recreation was roughly $18 million. So if and it's lower next year, it's less money next year, but let's just say that it was going to be this amount. We're talking about 25% of our capital spend on Parks and Rec. Is that appropriate? Is our infrastructure, our recreational infrastructure up to speed? One person I saw on social media was talking about the sculpture garden, and that it doesn't seem that we're able to effectively maintain the sculpture garden that we already have on the waterfront. And I think that's a really fair point.
Fountains aren't running, it's not maintained. Yeah, absolutely, that's fair.
Right. I think that's a really fair point to consider. So I think that we need to hear a little bit more of an elaborate case for this. I think we need to understand where it sits in the community's priorities. And in general, I think we just need a lot more context in all these discussions around spending money. The way that media covers these stories, it's 5 million this, 20 million that, 35 million for the other thing, but no context. Like one of the things we talked about in our pre-show, and maybe this is a good transition into what Don is going to say as he
told you not to bring this up,
as he sings the praises of this project. But the cost of City Hall, like constructing a whole new City Hall, was, it was projected initially to be less than this. It was like in the 20s and it landed in the 40s. So this canopy tent concert thing is roughly 2/3 of a new City Hall. Is that right? Is that how we should be using our resources? Like, I'm not convinced.
Yeah, I guess I'll jump in here. First, I would like to inform John that I was a lot cooler before you guys met me. So I actually played at the Onion downtown many, many years ago. Nice. You're welcome. And I also played at the Freedom Festival. So I've actually done performances down there, and 100% it gets way too hot just sitting there on the
played the Freedom Festival, Don?
I played Summerfest, which was the post Freedom Festival event that was going on
Yeah.
down
So
there.
like,
Don wasn't willing to play Freedom Festival. He waited. until
No,
it
I
became
don't do
Summer
anything for
Festival.
free. Yeah, I don't do anything for free.
after a hard day's work as a carny, you jumped up on stage and played. That is dedication, man.
Look, man, you got to make your money where you can make it, right? You guys got to do what you can. So realistically, look, I didn't like them. I understood why they put the concert venue down there. I wasn't a big fan of it when it was built. And a lot of it is the issues that you guys have brought up and the city's brought up. There's no trees, there's no nothing down there. And to be honest, the real estate side of Don, the less cooler side of Don, it drives me crazy when people will get on the well, we can't have any development on the waterfront. We got tons of development on the waterfront. It's just all bloody parking lots. So, and one shitty restaurant that was probably the worst restaurant design I've ever seen in my entire life for a waterfront restaurant. Let's put it behind a parking lot so you get a nice view of someone's exhaust pipe. But anyway, that's another show.
But it has an actual beacon.
Man, that's what you want to call it. My lasagna tastes so much better with all the carbon monoxide in it. So look, I think they do have to do something down there. There's these crazy things that actually are natural canopies. They're called trees. I don't know if anyone's heard of them. That may have been an option when they built the place. Maybe not make it all pavement. Why was it pavement in the first place? But anyway, we got what we got, and we're stuck with what we have. I think Doug makes a very valid point that at 30 some odd $1 million, that's a large sum of money that you could do, a library, or as you mentioned, City Hall. So the cost to me seems a bit out of whack for basically what is just some kind of crazy dome that's going to be made out of steel and polycarbonate panels or something. And the reality is, I think what Doug says is very important. We don't seem to have a grant. We've done 20-year plans and 20-year studies for this. And, when Councillor Holt was on here talking about development, he says all these studies, I made the joke that they all just sit on a shelf and no one ever does anything. We've thrown casinos downtown. We were supposed to do a hockey arena that never showed up. Then the next panacea was going to be, the aquatic center. And now we got, this geosynchronous dome that's going to go over top. Like, I think Doug's right. There's no grand plan for what we're going to do with downtown to make it a better place. And it needs to be made a better place. But on things like this, when you're spending $32 million on a project like this, you're not dealing, what are the issues right now downtown? And, I know this isn't an interactive show, so we can't have people call in, but I'm going to tell you what I think they are. I live downtown. I like an urban environment. I used to live in Toronto. I used to love walking down to, the Danforth or downtown. And the issues downtown right now is we have a big homeless issue. We have a lot of people with mental illness down there and addiction problems. You could build the Leaning Tower of Pisa downtown until you deal with the basic problems on the ground and get help for the people that need help who are hanging around downtown, which, like it or not, detracts people from going downtown. You can build anything and you're not going to solve that problem. In the Ann Jarvis article that was in the Windsor Star, she brought up, don't just crap on this plan because of X, Y, and Z. And then she brought up, we're putting 30 some odd $1 million to build public housing down in Meadowbrook. I think that was 100 units, 300 units, whatever. No, it was 100 units because they were about 300 apiece. That's not solving that problem. That's just like saying, okay, we did that thing. It's done now. It's not done now. There's still a huge problem with homelessness and affordability for people on the low end of the income scale to get housing. And until you solve problems like that, you can build 1 million bloody attractions. That's not going to solve an issue of downtown when you have people down there who need help, need housing help, need mental health help, need addiction problem help. And, this to me is just another, and obviously I'm on the naysayer side of Doug's equation here. It's not a bad idea. I think it kind of looks kind of cool. I can understand it's a need, but again, it's prioritizing our needs in this community. We don't seem to do that. We seem to look at the housing situation and go, well, the government gave us $32 million for building that. Okay, problem solved. Let's move back to, bright, shiny things that I can stick my name on and show my kids when, I have grandkids. So, I don't even know if this is going to happen. I'll see what happens with, I'm actually kind of shocked that when I read the information on it in the newspaper that it took 4 or 5 years to come up with this. So I don't know. I think someone could have done this in much quicker time, probably a lot cheaper. So we'll see what's going to happen. I just think there are bigger issues to deal with in this community than building a dome over top of the concert venue right now.
Yeah, just a couple things I want to react to there, Don. You mentioned the Jarvis piece, and I read that. I was pretty interested in that piece. To Ann Jarvis's credit, she tried to contextualize the numbers and talk about how other community priorities are being pursued. And I appreciate that, although I think that falls short, that analysis falls short, because if you're really going to contextualize this stuff, it needs to be in the context of the broader budget and of all of the community priorities. You don't want to just cherry pick, well, we're spending this on homelessness, we're spending this on that. I think, you know, a broader conversation would be better. But also to pick up that point that you made, Don, the city's invested $30 million in public housing. So we're saying that this tent is a few percentage points higher priority than housing, because we're prepared to sink the same amount of money into it that has been earmarked for public housing retrofitting. So, you know,
Yeah, but can you fit 5,000 people into a public housing unit for a concert, Doug?
It all depends on how determined you are, Jonathan. So yeah, you know, I think that there's a broader and better discussion to be had here, and I was disappointed in the Jarvis piece in, you know, calling out people who are critical as naysayers. I thought Councillor Bordelin had a good response to that today on social media. You know, people are skeptical. People are skeptical of big new ideas that suddenly emerge from the center. And it does seem like that's the only way we get big new ideas around here anymore. You know, looking at the comments online, which is always dangerous, it seems like, you know, there is a lot of skepticism and criticism on this idea. I really hope that council has a good and wide-ranging discussion on this. And that it gets evaluated appropriately at budget time. I'm just not sold on it, and I don't think that the majority in the community are sold on it, and I think there's a reason for that.
Well, let me ask you guys a question. You know, you brought up the money issue and the projects. Name me one great idea project that came out, was developed and built, that's been successful in Windsor. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, just give me a minute, man.
I'm giving you a minute.
You know, I'm sure that there have been municipal,
like the aquatic
investments.
center's been a horrible failure. Like, let's face it, that's been horrible.
I think that's a really good point, Don. I think that if the aquatic center is the last thing that you touted as this world-class new destination tourist attraction, that you should probably be disqualified from proposing any new tourist attractions until that one's gone. But also on the aquatic center, and perhaps more constructively, I think it's a really good idea when we get ideas like this. When we hear about the idea, let's hear what success looks like. What does it mean? What is the measure of success for this project? What is the goal? Is the goal nothing except that people are going to feel good about it? Is the goal that we're going to attract more and better events to Festival Plaza? And if so, okay, how many? You know, and let's and over what time frame? And let's create some measurable objectives, because it would be fantastic to move the discussion of whether an idea was good or bad out of the realm of politics and rhetoric and into the realms of, look, these were the goals that we stated, and let's measure it against its stated goals. So I'd like to see that for every new idea that comes down the pike, but this one is a great place to start. What are the tangible benefits to the city going to be? I understand that there's some things that are intangible, but surely if we're going to spend $30+ million, we're expecting something tangible that will benefit us, that can be measured. What is it? Define it. How much, how many, and when?
Well, and another, I don't want to jump all over you, John, but another thing I'd like to add, when you brought up, you know, is this the only option we had? Were there any other options? You know, why don't we get to see some other ideas? To me, and again, I don't know how much this would cost. I don't know anything about this, but just throwing things out there. If you're going to spend 30 some odd $million down there, and like Doug had mentioned, pretty much we could build a city hall for that cost. It would seem to me, why not take this and just enclose the whole damn thing? Put some units in there that storefronts can rent. You could have farmers markets down there year round. That's going to bring you some return on this investment, because the reality is in the wintertime, you're not going to do anything down there except sit under it to hide from the snow if you're homeless. So why not take a business approach to it instead of the just let's build a shiny new object thing and get a return on the investment? It's never going to return 100%, but make it a thing you can use year round. Why would you spend that kind of money on any project in the downtown or anywhere that can't be used year round? It doesn't make any sense.
It's climate change adaptation, Don. We're going to have way more summer. So
well, there you go. We're going to need bigger air conditioning units. That's what it is. But well, years ago I went to Winnipeg, and there was, I forget if it was an old train station or armories building, but I went through there, and you know what? All it was basically like going to a big market. Everybody had stalls in there. That'd be perfect downtown. Like, why don't we look at a business case for these things? Because this is, like you said, unless you're going to have more events, which I doubt we're going to have, I don't see the return on investment. So if you're going to spend this kind of money, spend it and make it make sense to where there's actually can be some kind of return on this investment.
Because Windsor's not in the business of, picking
having good
winners
ideas
and losers. Just some become winners and losers, but you can't go rewarding people. I remember when Green Sun Rising wanted to donate their charging unit things with the covered seating area with USB chargers. The city went like, nope, you can't have your advertising on it, so we won't take it. But how are those bird scooters doing? How many are there now? 2,000 everywhere on our streets. But just to go to what you were saying, Doug, you asked like, what's the objective? What's the outcome? Dilkin said it very clearly. The project, Dilkin says, is to make Festival Plaza a better place for local people to enjoy and also a tourist attraction. So you'll be able to count it simply by the hotel visits. So once this opens up, you'll be able to compare how many more people check into our hotels on the summer basis. They also say that they're going to be able to extend events into spring and later into the fall. Climate change, as mentioned. We'll be able to tangibly measure this, but of course, like any other thing like this, it's not going to be a tourist attraction. It's not going to draw anyone else to the city. It's certainly not going to create any more festival promoters because there's shade there. This isn't to say that there's not a reason to have this done. I do think that there is a need to finish the festival site, but I think it's pretty galling during a pandemic when, we still have a affordable housing wait list as long as it is, to be going and committing or attempting to commit, $32.5 million on top of the $40 million that we committed for 80 Knox without having any guarantee that there will be a provincial or federal match or investment whatsoever. It's just, what else could we do? We talked about this one, Doug, in our chat that we have a couple days ago, and you brought this point up. I don't mean to speak for you here at the very end, but it's $100 million we're talking about here, right? What would $100 million do if it was invested into our transit system? What would $100 million do if it was invested into affordable housing, community housing? What would $100 million do? You fill in the blank. What do you think $100 million can do? And the issue is not that these aren't necessary projects. It's, are they necessary now, in my opinion? And B, is it necessary without a guarantee of any funds coming from the two higher levels of government? But I guess I'll just go and venture this. When's the next election, Doug, municipally?
I believe that's scheduled for October 2022.
Wow. So next year. And didn't we hear that 80 Knox construction would begin shovels in the ground January? And this is proposed to see shovels in the ground January. That's interesting. I'm not saying there's a connection. I'm just, weird.
Actually, another question I got for you. They say this was approved by city council in 2018. Was that this council or the previous council?
Oh,
Not sure about that.
that's interesting.
Yeah, not sure about that, but I don't think this plan was presented to council, right? The approval was more generic.
They approved to move forward with the proposal for something of the festival site, regardless of which council it was. I mean, I think they expected, to get like an A, B, and C. I'd be interested to see. It'd be interesting if someone would do a FOIA or an access to information. Were there any other renderings that were done? Was this the only one that came back? Oh, it's a $33 million thing, or actually the footings won't support anything else down at the riverfront. Sorry, it's this one or nothing. That's weird. Actually, your current stage will fall apart, crumble, and the liabilities are through the roof.
Large sheets of saran wrap. I see it now.
Are we all good though? I think on this one.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, I just want to say one more thing.
Sure.
The point you brought up about there's 30 or 40 million for 80 knocks, 30 million for this. We got 40 million for a library coming down the path. That's going to show up before the election shows up. So we are discussing $100 million plus. Just using their numbers, we're spending 32 or 39 million dollars to build 300 units. Another $100 million, you got, another 300 units. What serves the community better? 300 more low-income housing units, or these projects that we're discussing that equal up to over $100 million?
Yeah, let's leave that as the pin for you all to keep thinking about. I don't
Send your hate mail to Doug Sartori.
They always do.
Let's talk about Amherstburg. Doug, this is one that's close to your heart. Close listeners to the show would know that as well. CTV's Michelle Maluski put this one out. New high school, new name. The $24 million high school being built in Amherstburg will not have the name Amherst on it after committee members voted against using the names Amherst or Amherstburg in their final list for consideration. Current high school named after General Jeffrey Amherst, member of the British Army in the late 1700s. He was an advocate for germ warfare against First Nation members with smallpox blankets. Now, the naming committee at the public school board has a list of 16 school names. They dwindled it down to 4 that will now be considered: North Star, Southwest Unity, Southwest Alliance, and Great Sauk Trail. The new high school in Amherstburg is now under construction and slated to open to students in fall of next year. It will consolidate students from Western Secretary and General Amherst High School. And this issue isn't absent of controversy, as the school is currently under construction and was vandalized with the words Amherstburg High School. So clearly some people took issue to the name. It's not a name change. It's a new name. It's a new high school. This is the thing that's, most interesting about this. I love seeing the comment section of people being like, don't go changing the name. That's just political correctness. No one's changing it. It's a new thing. It doesn't have to.
And that spray painting looked a lot like my dad's handwriting. I'm just going to say that right now.
So this is a it's a sad one. Don't like the graffiti that happened, but it's a one-off. I don't think it'll be a continual issue. As someone who is a member of the Samish Indian tribe, a U.S. tribe, I don't think it's appropriate to name, public institutions after people who advocated genocide. Not cool. As someone Jewish, I'd be very opposed if someone came forward and said, let's name the new high school Hitlerville. I don't think that would be the best idea.
I think that's the name of the new dome downtown.
It's a hyperbolic suggestion or a comparison, but at the same time, it is a direct comparison to a certain extent. And the great thing is that this is an opportunity to decide whether or not you want to confer an honorific on someone who, in my opinion, doesn't deserve any honorifics anymore and rather just simply condemnations. But Doug, I'm going to come to you again first on this one. Listeners to the show know that you're no stranger to Amherstburg or Amherstburg politics. So let's take your take on it.
Sure. Yeah. For context, I attended General Amherst High School back in the day, and I'm a graduate of that school. Look, I'm glad the naming committee came to their senses here. The last time they met, they presented two names that included Amherstburg in the name as the only two alternatives they were prepared to present to trustees. I think that it was communicated to them that those names were unlikely to be accepted, and it appears that they've had a change of heart, perhaps a better understanding of the issues. I've got to say, Trustee Ron Leclerc, who represents Amherstburg and who was chairing the naming committee, had a really thankless job trying to stick handle this situation. You've got to imagine, based on just on the media reports, you've got to imagine those were not easy meetings for Mr. Leclerc. So it's good to see that there is a resolution here. I think a number of other elected trustees made their position clear, which probably helped to come to this resolution. But it's just as you say, John, this is a new school with a new name. So we're talking about conferring a new honor on Jeffrey Amherst. That is just flat out unacceptable. There's no way that it's consistent with the stated values of the Greater Essex County District School Board. This school will be in the town, but the school does not own the town, and residents of the town do not have the right to run roughshod over the principles of the school board or over the very idea of reconciliation with Indigenous people in Canada. They do not have the right to do that just because the school will be cited in their town. So go ahead, John.
So I wanted to just pick up on that. I'm sorry. It's okay. With Truth and Reconciliation Day, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, how lucky is our region that they came to their senses and the national news story on Truth and Reconciliation Day wasn't Windsor Essex School Board names school after advocate of Indigenous genocide. That would have been the story. It would have been one of all of the terrible stories that this region seems to only get on a national scale. So my question is there, do you think that, that had any consideration on it? Or do you think they just came to their senses for the right reason? I would imagine that someone had to have been like, have you guys checked the date right now? Like, this is like, you guys have to you gotta pull those. Like, you can't do this.
Yeah, it might well. Like, I think that the main reason why there was so much opposition, and it was really vocal. I certainly saw it on social media and on the comment threads related to any of these pieces. I think the reason is that residents of Amherstburg feel attacked. They feel like the fact that the name of their town is not acceptable for a new school name in the town reflects poorly on the town as a whole. I think it reflects very poorly on the name of the town. I think that there's probably an opportunity here to consider what next steps and what steps in the future might be in terms of changing the name of the town, or finding some other way to mitigate the fact that this person being honored is not worthy of the honors that he has in modern society. But this is about, Amherstburg people feeling like they're under attack. circling the wagons, getting very inflamed about it. I think that now that this has been resolved, I don't expect this to continue to be a controversy 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I don't think that this is something that is going to be a burning resentment in the hearts of people in Amherstburg. And, I'm just glad that it's apparently over and we can move on, and maybe move on to better conversations about what other things can be changed in Amherstburg.
Yeah, I think Doug's metaphor of circling the wagons is probably pretty apt in this situation. Full disclosure, I went to Prince Andrew Public School, and that hasn't turned out very well in the last few years. So I think we should be changing.
I went to Prince Andrew as well.
Did you? There you
Yeah,
go.
I did.
You guys, come on. You got to start
Hey,
disclosing that now.
It's just, it's just where we went. The interest. Look, I have a lot of family out in Amherstburg, so I do spend time out in Amherstburg. So I get the small town feeling attacked culture kind of thing out there. I mean, anytime you try to bring any kind of change to any of the small towns, whether it's Amherstburg, Harrow, Kingsville, blah, 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 blah.
They practically rioted about indoor plumbing.
Well, yeah, exactly. This is what we're talking. And, they built a new sewer plant out there. My brother lost his mind. Anyway, I think we need to stop naming schools after people. When this was all kind of first came out in the media, I saw something about the new Kingsville High School being built. And somebody had said, oh, we should name it after Nelson Santos. He's done so much great stuff for the community. It's like, for the love of God, can we just stop doing this? Because, well, I'm not going to say anything bad about Nelson because he's still alive, and I'm sure he's a fabulous human being. But trust me, you don't want to name a school after me one day. It's a terrible idea. 50 years from now, you're going to find out some stuff and go, wow, what were we thinking? I went to W.F. Herman High School. To this day, I have no idea who the hell W.F. Herman is. I think most people who are probably involved in the we have to call it Amherstburg, probably don't even know who the hell Lord Amherst was or what he did, or have no concept of the history of it. It would just make sense to an uneducated guy like me that, look, we have to acknowledge that at one point this was all native land. We're the invaders here. We're the people who came under. And you know what? That happens in history all around the world. I get that. There's no reason we can't name that high school after whatever native community was out there. That's the easy thing. It's not even hard. Just pick that one. I don't know what tribe was out there. I think John mentioned it. Just name it after them. Why not? That's easy. But people get worked up about stuff like this, and then they, see the next new shiny object to get outraged about, and they go out and, I think this is a lot like, we didn't want to bring this up, and I'm the one who said, don't bring this up. The protest downtown at the stupid hospital today. I think this is 20 people who got their something in a bunch and went out and decided, I'm going to go show them, paint something on the school. And again, I bet they don't even know who Lord Amherst was, what he did. They probably don't even know what they're protesting. So I think this is just small town mentality that, again, they're feeling attacked because, this is the way it's always been, and this is the way we want to keep it. We don't like change. So
I love the idea that in order to comment on this, you need to be able to answer a 4-question multiple choice quiz about Jeffrey Amherst correctly.
100%. And I just learned his first name is Jeffrey, so I would have failed that test completely. So
you would have
100%.
It wasn't Aloysius like you thought.
Well, that was the obvious choice. So again, I'll speak for the uneducated. I don't think most people know to this. You name these schools. Amherst High School was probably done 100 years ago, and you fast forward 100 years, and I didn't know who W.F. Herman was. I vaguely knew who Prince Andrew was. I know way too much about him now. Lord Amherst, to be honest, I didn't know much of the history of Amherst out there either. I didn't know he was a horrible human being. But now that I know, you have to accept that. You can't just say, oh, well, he did some terrible stuff, but we're just going to do it because that's the way we've always done it. So, it's been an absurd argument. I don't know if the school board really puts lots of effort into these things, but obviously they should think more consciously about what they're doing.
I think we should have a new policy that schools can only be named after fictional characters.
100%.
It would solve everything, right?
Professor McGonagall Academy.
Scarlet Pimpernel High School. You got it.
Nothing to worry about.
You start to understand why you go, if you go to big cities like New York and that, it's public school 47, because obviously, let's just give them a number because it's just a waste of time trying to please everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I went to Dougal School downtown, and just while you guys were chatting, looked up.
Who's
just wait,
Dougal? I swear to God, I have no idea
yeah.
who Dougal is.
So James Dougal was the first mayor of Windsor, and as he seems like a pretty cool guy. He was a horticulturalist and a businessman. He subsidized the Patriot War, or the Battle of Windsor, himself. He bought all the guns,
Nice.
so we defended against Detroit. But as magistrate, I guess the negative thing is he named us Windsor. And I have, on multiple times when this topic specifically of Amherstburg naming has come up, had people go, oh yeah, well, what do you think about changing the name Windsor? Because the Windsors aren't the most, good family that there is. And I go, well, one, don't threaten me with a good time of changing the name. That sounds like it could be excellent. But, I guess, the problem is, as you just sort of alluded to, Don, you go back 100 and 120 years, the culture was very different. You go back 20, 25 years and the culture was different. Hell, some comedians are, I don't want to say cancel culture, but there are like some people that like jokes that were perfectly acceptable 10 years ago have become completely different. So I think that really goes to this idea of, don't confer the honorifics on human beings, because, someone is always going to be there to judge. And that person might not have been around when they said the things, and they might not understand the context. And maybe what they said was even a joke in some context. Who knows?
Well, and obviously when Dougal was involved in the sex trade back in the 1800s, he didn't know that was going to be a problem. Like,
how could it? He was just bringing in ships of people that were looking for.
That's right.
Okay.
Jokes.
So you brought up the Patriot War, though, and it reminded me of the one that always makes me shake.
Oh
my
God,
head.
you just dug onto ancient wars. This is going to be an hour long.
So just
I'm
just going to talk right through your nonsense, Don. John Prince was I forget what his role was in the city. He was a judge or something, some kind of magistrate locally. But John Prince ordered and oversaw the summary execution of 5 individuals who had crossed the border from Detroit. And not only did we name a street after him, he was actually elected MP twice after his bout of extrajudicial murder in Sandwich Town. So, the one always sticks out at me. John Prince got Prince Road, and it's like that guy wasn't canceled immediately. I would have expected that would have been an immediate cancellation, but actually apparently the people loved him and he got elected a couple times.
Maybe they deserved it. Who were these 5 people he executed?
Prince led the militia in dispersing the attack, but also gave the order for execution of anyone who was captured. 5 of the captured were summarily shot without trial. Wow. And
Look,
wait, one sec. Immediately the next point is, in 1836, Prince was elected to the Legislative Assembly of Upper Canada.
We have a lot of ex-military people going to higher office in the world. So, it was everybody was doing it back then. It was all the rage.
Yeah, that's not quite ex-military. That's like me killing people and saying I'm military.
Well, if you had a fancy uniform on, it's okay.
Yeah, and if I could, get some cool guns.
I'm sorry to derail the show.
No, that was good. I liked it. We've got.
I was waiting for a Roman battle to come up at some point. So.
Oh, we'll get there, Donald.
Do we have time for both, Doug, or do you think just one here?
You pick. Dealer's choice.
Well, we've gone on the surge.
Okay.
Please pick the helicopter noise. That's the stupidest thing I ever
heard. Really?
That's the segment.
Okay, we're doing it then. U.S. helicopters are hovering over Windsor neighborhoods, but they're not violating any laws. They're just sort of there. Windsor Star's Brian Cross put this one out. City Council, though, is going to appeal to Windsor's MPs to address resident complaints about low-flying U.S. sightseeing helicopters hovering over Windsor. Tried to scare that with a lower voice there at the end. Admin says there's nothing the city can do about the intrusion, as the regulation is federal. The report, though, was written in response to a council question from Ward 6 Councillor Joanne Geniak. Windsor Airport CEO says the sightseeing tours flying over and around Detroit River are noted, and he said that he's already responded to similar queries from the mayor's office as well as councillors. These flights are permitted under Canadian aviation regulations so long as the altitude is 500 feet above anyone, vessel, vehicle, or structure. The control tower at Windsor Airport previously sent a request to these tour operators asking them, hey, can you guys please stop? But, they didn't. And the city has also said, please, come on, you guys cut it out. But they won't because, it's a federal thing. Quote from the City of Windsor admin report, the practice has really not changed since the request was made. So this is I don't know. To me, this is like a squawk story. Really easy way for Joanne Gignac to get some news coverage here. But I mean, like, what's the news story here? Helicopters not breaking laws, more at 11. Like, I don't see it. Doug, I know that when we talked about it, you said that there was a bit more to it than my quips, which is totally fair. But at the same time, again, like, what are you going to do? It's just, it's allowed.
I think your quips are just fine for the record, John.
Yes.
I think Councillor Gignac is doing what she needs to do to represent her constituents. I'm sure that it's very annoying to have a helicopter flying close to your house and what you think is a residential neighborhood. It's easy to be dismissive of people's concerns and say, hey, this is a border town. You got to expect it. You live in the city. There's going to be noise. All of those things are true. It'll be interesting to find out what, if anything, could actually be done. It sounds like if the tour operators are complying with all necessary regulations, I'm not sure what possibly can be done. I can't imagine any regulations being changed over this. But fair enough. She raised it, and fair enough. They're going to ask the question. I don't think this is the most. There's probably an element of what you're saying, John, that it's it's a way to capture some positive media, fighting for your constituents, et cetera, et cetera. Every politician does this. I don't think it's I don't think it makes Joanne Gignac history's greatest monster or anything because she's doing it. It's playing to the crowd a little bit. I think that's fine. The end. Move on.
Isn't this really close to just old, rich, retired white people yelling at clouds like on The Simpsons there?
Yes.
Like,
So
let's be serious.
It's literally what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I've used that reference a few times, so I didn't want to drag it out again, but like, this is, damn you, clouds. I know when I get on my motorcycle and go downtown and jump in the water on my 200 horsepower jet ski, I get really upset by all the noise those helicopters are making because it's disturbing my fun. So, and again, I think Windsor's thinking small here. If we look at the big picture, why don't we build a dome over the whole city? That way it's soundproof. You won't hear the helicopters. I think it's let's think big for once in a while.
Okay.
That would be a tourist attraction. I'm telling you right now.
Okay, what would we name the dome? This is really important, you guys.
It's gonna be the WFCU Center presents the WFCU Center Dome.
There you go.
And it's gonna have a big spray paint of their logo on the top. Translucent though. You won't be able to see it from underneath, but above. Oh boy.
Okay, that's pretty good. What would you name the dome, Don?
Well, if we're going to tee off on the Amherstburg people, I'll go back to my Ukrainian heritage. And why don't we just name it like the Stalin Dome, and everybody who's Ukrainian will just be thrilled to death.
Okay. Of the two, I like John's better. just for the record.
I don't even like mine. I'm just saying what it will be. I'm not.
Yeah. Let's face it. John's actually right. That's what it would be named.
It is funny though, because you got to think of it from this perspective. There are tourism flights happening over Windsor, Essex, and we actually have councillors complaining now.
When we just talked about a tourist attraction.
Yeah, the whole, and Joanne's going to be the first person to vote yes on the Festival Plaza. So it's just this is just, it's yet another example of just the hypocrisy or the double standards that is presented by, as I've coined them before, the faux fiscal conservatives here.
Are you saying that the tent is going to attract helicopters?
I'm saying we already have them, and I don't think it will push them away, especially not with that gorgeous WFCU logo right on the top of it.
Actually, yeah, they should just put a giant logo on top. That'd be awesome. Be like the Louis Vuitton dome for the.
It'll be like cars, like the tiny little holes on the siding that you can get. So on the inside, you don't see any advertising, but you can see out. But on the outside, you see the advertising. Like that's what it needs to be.
Do you think this would land like the Capri Center, where the city puts out a call for expressions of interest in like agate type on the last page of the newspaper? Somebody gets in under the wire, and then suddenly it's like the Shawarma Kingdom dome.
It's gonna be Ernie the Bacon Man's
There you go.
Festival Plaza, because he bid 199 and everyone else forgot to do it.
Right.
Well, speaking of Amherstburg, not that we're trying to pick on that, but didn't like some pedophile sponsor the multi-use unit thing out there?
Yes.
Yeah. So there you go.
I don't want to just say yes to whatever slander you just committed, Don, but there was some allegations. I think that actually the person was a convicted sex offender. Yeah.
They gave him his money back, if I'm not mistaken, and took his name off of yeah, it's
2011 town rejects donation from pedophile.
There
you go. I guess Don's safe if the newspaper printed it.
That's yeah. Just like when we brought up stuff downtown and it was in the newspaper and we're the only ones who got sued.
In 2014, his title was upgraded to sex offender.
Okay. Oh, well, there you go. We'll name a street after him.
This is a hell of a show note to end the show on, you guys.
Wait, let's just finish. In 2016, it was upgraded to convicted sex offender. So there you go, you guys. That's the whole pathway.
Yeah.
That didn't have anything to do with the show, but we did it.
Not at all. At least he didn't kill 5 guys in the militia. So
yeah, we don't have to name a school after him. So
we're gonna get our asses sued again. I know.
What, by the estate of John Prince?
That's right. The Dougal family's already trying to figure out where I live. So.
Well, this is why you listen to Rose City Politics. It's always a fun time.
Is this why they call us naysayers in the media all the time?
This isn't naysaying, Don. This is something completely different.
No, this is nay jamming.
There you go.
This is like a scat performance of jazz right now. We are all just
completely free flowing fusion-y kind of thing, and that's it.
Speaking there of jazz, much like when you try to pick up a saxophone and spit down a smooth melodic melody, that's sort of a redundant statement there. We ourselves try to do the exact same thing in our segment that we call For Your Consideration, where we take the things that have been flowing through our minds, making us upset, making us happy, making us interested. We talk about it, we discuss it, we distill it, and we try to give it to you all in this segment. So for your consideration, we will ask Doug Sartori to step up first, please.
Okay, and actually I have 2. I'm annexing Don's because he never has one.
There you go.
First up, I want to call everyone's attention to a report that is on the Windsor Law Center for Cities website. You can find it at windsorlawcities.ca. The report is Windsor's Cycling History, authored by Windsor Law professor and former dean, Dr. Christopher Waters. There's a really interesting report on the history of cycling in our city. I encourage everyone to take a peek. Very interesting stuff. The other for your consideration item that I have, and since it's entirely self-serving and all about me, this is Don's. Tomorrow night, I am presenting a talk on evaluating political data, specifically federal election results. And that is under the auspices of Hackforge. You can find out more on Hackforge's meetup page. But if you want to be a data nerd and learn some really cool data stuff, as well as talk a little bit of politics, you might want to check that out. Meetup.com/Windsor Hackforge. Okay, that's it. That's my stuff.
Actually, little known fact, just to ruin Doug's thing here, Hackforge is named after the guy who used to make the axes for Mr. Prince to go and execute prisoners during the war back in the 1800s.
It's not.
Well, for your consideration, I want you all to look into James Dugal. I mean, the guy actually wasn't that bad. No, I'm kidding. I drove by the hospital today, Windsor Regional Hospital. There were about 6 people that were protesting. I guess the dismissal, I suppose, of the employees who refused to get vaccinated. There were more police officers there at the time than there were protesters, but I had heard that earlier there were dozens to 100 of protesters, which was very much a reminder of Arrested Development. There are dozens of us, screamed the man in the cutoff jean shorts, that he would really never show ever. But I guess the point being is the undue media coverage here. You're talking about 0.006% of a region of 400,000 that is getting just such undue media coverage at this point. Even though vaccination rates aren't as high as we would like them to be, these people don't even represent that minority, let alone the vast majority. They are such a small yet vocal group that doesn't deserve this coverage. And I think the media should just stop. Just stop covering them. I think you said it best, Doug, a couple months ago. I forget what group you had referred to, but it really applies to any group that is, trying to do good in the community, that has to fight through thick and thin to try to get media coverage that regularly is not there for them. Yet the worst of the worst, that's such a small group, seem to get so much noise. So I don't want to make any more noise for it. So, just stop. That's it. Stop.
There you go. And I'd like to talk about jean shorts that are cut off. It's
What?
You're part of the dozens.
All right. All right. This is off the rails even for us, you guys.
all right.
Yeah,
I apologize.
We haven't touched the third rail, but we have certainly derailed. That is for sure. But it's been a fun show here on the 29th of September. We will be back, and I guess it's pumpkin spice season. So next week will be brought to you by pumpkins, the fruit that's not a fruit, and it doesn't taste good, and it's got a terrible exterior. Our regular panel
But looks
tonight-
great in jean shorts if you haven't been out to the pumpkin patch very often.
That is a truly scary pumpkin. You should all consider a little jean shorted pumpkin for your front porch if you're looking to scare away any trick-or-treaters. Our regular panel tonight was Don Merrifield Jr. and Doug Sartori and myself, John Lidke. Please do support us. We're at patreon.com/Rose City Politics. We are in BizX Magazine at bizxmagazine.com and on all of your favorite social media and podcasting apps. And Rose City Politics has been able to broadcast on tape throughout this pandemic and pre-pandemic, thanks to the kind support of Liuna 625, building better communities. As I said, we will be back in October. Looking forward to it. All the best.